This week on the Deep Leadership Podcast.
Most negative emotions that we feel are because we're sitting in victimhood, where we feel like
Mm.
something is happening to us rather than that situation happening for us.
This episode is brought to you by the Salty Sailor Coffee Company, the official coffee of the Deep Leadership Podcast. Salty Sailor is a veteran-owned coffee brand on a mission to deliver premium, fresh roasted coffee while making a positive impact in the world. Their motto is drink coffee and do good, which reflects their commitment to making amazing coffee and actively supporting the military community. 10% of every order goes to the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, an organization dedicated to helping sailors, Marines, and their families in times of need. All our listeners get 10% off every order of their amazing coffee by using the discount code DEEP at checkout. So check them out at saltysailorcoffee.com. Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Ben Johnson. Ben is the CEO and founder of Particle41, a global software consultancy that aims to help companies accelerate their technology initiatives. He is a serial technical co-founder with a track record of success and hands-on open source programming experience. Through his 20 plus years as a software developer and leader, he has gained extensive experience with remote distributed development teams and business success strategies. I'm excited to have on the show to talk about the world of technology leadership. So Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me.
Hey, it's great to meet you. And I'm excited to talk about the subject of technology leadership. You are clearly the expert, and I'm glad to have you here. I wanted to start off, just tell us a little bit about Particle 41. What is it that you do, and what makes your company so unique?
Yeah, so Particle41, think of us as the special operators of cloud migration and application modernization. So that's a mouthful. We exist to replace the world's legacy technology with modern cloud services. What does that mean? It means that if we do our job right, you get something that is easier to maintain and has a better user experience.
That makes a lot of sense. And I, working for many years in corporate, there were a lot of legacy old systems out there, and they were clunky, and they, typically slowed us down. So you're helping fix some of those old legacy systems then?
We are. We also do a fair share of the normal software, custom software development, like mobile apps and cloud platforms, customer data platforms. But kind of our differentiator is being able to handle softwares that are older, already in flight, have some kind of users already operating on them, and get those turned over into modern cloud services.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And we talked before we press record. The name Particle 41 was interesting to me. And could you explain the title and why you chose that name for the company? Because
Yeah,
I think it's
so
really unique.
Oh, thank you. The 41st element is niobium. We didn't want to call the company that, but niobium is used in practical application, like jet engines, and its most common application, though, is to be combined with steel to make it stronger, more flexible. It takes the brittleness out of normal native steel, and it also allows you to give it an anodized sheen. Like if you see like a petroleum plant, it'll have a bunch of blue pipe. Well, that blue came from the anodizing process with niobium.
Excellent. So in a way, your company is there to make other companies stronger and more flexible.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. Such a great name and such a unique story. So tell us about the origin of Particle 41 and how you came to join them as a co-founder.
Yeah, so my partner and I started Particle41. Really, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had five kind of 0 to 60 and exit stories. My partner and I met each other at the first one, which was a travel startup called One Travel. I think the brand's still around today. And then we did a couple different online advertising companies. And just, he was always kind of the service delivery guy that I was partnering with as the CTO and the visionary. And so in 2014, we decided to join forces and form Particle41, really out of a just our network kept coming and asking, hey, could you do that for me too? Because we did have a track record of being able to create products in a short amount of time that would help solve users' problems, and people would enjoy using them.
Okay. Yeah. And it seems to be successful. You've been around, what, 10 years? Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, you're starting to get in those, like what are the businesses? A lot of businesses fail within the first 5 years. I don't know what that percentage is, but we've got to 8 years with our company now. You're at 10 years. So you're doing pretty good when you're getting those numbers.
Yeah, and we're at about 120 people now, and we're in about 20 carefully picked engagements right now.
Okay, excellent. You used an expression I wanted to ask you about it because we've had a lot of guests in our shows that kind of label themselves as serial entrepreneurs, and I just thought I would ask you because I've never asked any of our guests before. How did you end up in the world of serial entrepreneurism, and what do you love about it? What's exciting about it to you? And is this something? Is did you expect that you'd be in this space doing this?
So in what's happened is I just never really stuck to a particular industry, but and technology is great for that. It has a discipline of its own. And the latest venture I started was in the legal service industry, where we identified a need for keeping entities in compliance, like corporate entities, where they
Mhm.
weren't doing their annual reports and kind of the regular things you need to do to make the Secretary of State happy. And then as you hired more employees, you need to have more of these entities and you need to keep more things in compliance. And then we sold it to LegalZoom in 3 years. So it was zero to sell to LegalZoom between 2015 and 2018, super quick. And in that experience, I also got to explore sales and product ownership and a lot of the interactions with other sides of the business besides just tech. And so I use the serial entrepreneur label now because even within Particle 41, we're helping businesses of all shapes and sizes, and we're helping them to navigate really the business around their software. So what kind of softwares are they buying, subscribing to? Everybody's got a bunch of those, 30 something dollar subscriptions. And in business, you have a lot more of them. So we're helping them identify their software stack and then where customization and being different to your customer is really important. I call it the high need to high value framework, so that you can really invest in the right build versus buy decision making process and really be different to your end customer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and there's a real need for it too. Like I said, having seen some of the various clunky systems that are out there, I know there's a big need for it. I mean, our company's young enough where we have sort of modern systems still, but the longer we're in business, I can see the more they are like we're just used to it, like versus is it the really the best the best software for the tool, the best tool for the job, right? It's more like, well, that's what we had when we got started and we still have it today, right?
Yeah, and a lot of folks will try to work with one of these big software providers like a Salesforce or a NetSuite. Nothing wrong with those; those are great tools. But as they push those towards the customer, they figure out what it can and can't do.
Yeah.
And then usually the customer is like, but this is exactly what I need. And you're figuring out limitations rather than able to easily fulfill what the customer is asking for. So we find at that user experience layer, that's where custom software is really important. You can have whatever behind that user experience powering it, and that can be the latest greatest thing that you partner with or subscribe to. But when it comes to touching the user, we need to be super delicate and give them exactly what they're asking.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That really does. So let's talk a little bit about leading technology teams. In your opinion, what's unique about leading technology groups or technology leadership versus maybe other types of leadership roles?
Yeah, so we are especially talking about the difference. You've been in the military, and I come from a military family. I was the one that didn't enlist. Um, And so I talked to my brothers, and I even have a CEO coach who's former Green Beret. And
Nice.
so we talk a lot about regular Army versus special operations.
Yeah.
And so in our culture, we talk about that. And when I'm leading technology teams, I'm often talking about, hey, the regular Army, they understand the minimum standard. Like they know how many push-ups is in the PT test. But when you go hang out with special operators, they have no idea what the minimum standard is. They do have some awareness of where their physical limits are, but they don't know where that where that minimum standard is. It's not even really in their way of thinking. So as we ask the client for requirements, we want to make sure that we're not asking for the minimum standard, but we want to know what is it, what is the mission, what is it that the client really wants to accomplish. And then we tailor our technology plans to meet that rather than taking orders for what the client thinks that the solution needs to be. We really want to what we say a lot is we want to operate from the boardroom to the code review. So we want to write quality code, but we want to make sure that it makes a difference in the boardroom. And that's just something that we've really tried to dial in, that we're the special operators of software development, not the asset of manpower for software development, but the asset of skill.
Yeah, it's really interesting. As a small business owner, I started my company from scratch, and I was going up against $40 billion companies, right, and selling similar products. And that's actually what we used to define our success, which was we are more like a SEAL team. We used to say is that we may be small, but we can compete against armies, which is what special forces teams do all the time, right? Is they compete against large conventional armies, and they usually come out, with wins, right? They get in and out, and they win because they take a different approach to warfare. They take a different, just like we take a different approach to the way we attack the market, and you're taking a different approach as the way that you're developing software. So I really like that analogy of the special forces versus a conventional army. Makes a lot of sense. Do you find though, as in leading technical teams, at least I found it from my experience, because I'm an engineer by my undergraduate, and I led technical teams, R&D and product development, product launches. Do you feel that the leader needs to be competent in technology to be able to act effectively lead high skill technology workers?
Um, I will do it depends in there, but yes, I do think that there's in our field, expertise is currency. So if you've
Mm,
been there and you've done that, you automatically have more currency in the room. One of my good buddies, he included me in the problem set around scaling a popular game called Words with Friends. Many people played this mobile game back in the day. Even our moms were texting us like, "Your game is so slow," when we were trying to working together to scale this thing. And he had the amazing job of really wrangling a SWAT team to help advance and scale that. And so the things that they learned as they were doing that were really extraordinary. And it just showed that expertise was currency, right? If you didn't know, so now the point there is now that as he goes further in his career, he just says, well, when I was at Words with Friends, and
mm,
everybody like, okay, whatever he's saying next, we're
yeah.
going to do that. And so expertise is currency. And so if the leader doesn't have expertise, then they need to at least be humble enough to say, who knows this? Who's the guy in the room that's been here before? Because that's the person we need to listen to, and we need to amplify those ideas. And I think we've just tried, myself and my business partner, we've just tried to model that. And early on, we were generally the guys that had been there, done that. But as we grow, we're finding that, oh, there's always somebody in the room that has been there. And what we don't want to do is, kind of have the no mind answer, or try to operate based on our own understanding, when there is just a plethora of best practices and standards that already exist in the market, and to not consider those would be, even when you go to try something new in the manufacturing space, you go look for the scientific research, you go look at the physics, you go look there to try to make sure that you're not trying to just make something up that doesn't have grounding in science. You look for those best practices and standards because you don't want to take risks when somebody else has been there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It strikes me that humility is a part of it. In other words, knowing when to say, this is something I'm not that familiar with. What have you seen? Or let's look for best practice. Let's not just rely on my 10-year-old knowledge of this particular solution of the problem, right?
We also understand that when it actually goes into solving the problem, like writing the code, so a lot of times we'll say, hey, this is an implementation detail. This is something we're going to figure out when it comes to getting the dots and the i's dotted and the t's crossed, and we know that that's going to take place there. We don't actually need to go that deep right now. We just need to make sure that the overall plan of attack is based in sound logic, and then we need to identify any risks so that we can have, right, like really the best high level plan. And so a lot of times we're cutting time off the books by saying, hey, that's an implementation detail, we can get those things perfect when it's time to. Right now we just need to make sure that we're following the best practice in the standard and we have the right strategy.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That really does. What are some other keys? I mean, to building a high performing technology team and then having them operate at a high level. I guess how do you get them? Obviously, you're building the team, but also getting them to perform at a high level.
So, definitely, I could be general and say, well, the culture. So then what does that mean? Like, one of our culture aspects is visibility. And so early on, we said, okay, well, what does visibility really mean practically? And so every member of every team gives an update to their team of how they made that day count. And so, what did you do today? What are you going to do next? And this is something that the general idea of this is something that came from agile software development, the stand up. But we kind of internalized it in a way where you're reminded. We use Status Hero, and you're reminded over Slack that, hey, like, keep everybody informed what the day meant to you, and then now it's turned into like make the day count. And so I think that's really important because um, we can either be Newton or we can be Einstein when it comes to time, right? We can have a scarcity mindset around time, meaning, oh, there's never enough. Or we can be an Einstein thinker around time, meaning it's relative. And the analogy I like to use is if you were sitting on a burning stove, time would slow down. Like that minute would seem like the longest minute of your life if your butt was literally burning. So we know by our own experience that time is relative. We can literally make time. And so by making the day count, we feel like everybody on our team can manufacture time. We also talk about the 45-minute blitz, and we talk about these kind of time management strategies where it's like 45 minutes, no interruptions, the do not disturb is set on the desktop, go see what you can accomplish for 45 minutes, then go take a break. And so some of those practical things to literally manufacture time have been really essential to being a high functioning team, because we all have these distraction devices in our pockets, and if we have a scarcity mindset with time, it will be truly that we will never have enough of it, and then we'll go back and look at a week and like I didn't accomplish anything. But if we really were honest with ourselves, we probably got a lot of social media followed and a lot of content consumed. And so we do have to have like practical discussions around this in our modern workforce.
Yeah, I love what you say that you can manufacture time, because I do truly believe that. If you think about it, like the day before you're about to go on a week's vacation, it's amazing what you can get done during
That's
that
right.
time. You're completely
That's right.
focused, right? You're like, I got to answer every call. I got to make sure that I've got response for all these things. I got to make sure I got a plan. You're like you're supercharged, right? So you're making that day count right before you leave on a vacation. How can you implement that, every day is what you're saying, like make the day count. The other thing too is, there's been research saying that people are more productive on airplane flights, and I read an article about it. It was talking about how like you're on that flight for 1 hour, right? And you're like, okay, you're focused. Typically, your technology is turned off, although now it's on too. But you can have a chance to really focus your attention. I like the idea of these 45-minute sprints, and I do that to myself at work too. Is I look at the clock, right, and it's like 1:15. I'm like, all right, I am going to go hard, right, until 2, right, and then I'm going to take a break. And when you have those focus sessions like that where you can shut everything down, and I'm a personal believer in turning off all notifications on everything, so I have no notifications on at all. You can really do focus. You can get a focused effort versus trying to manage multiple things at the same time, all of the distractions as you mentioned.
That's right. So we talk a lot about that. We also talk about like check your email in the morning, check it at lunch, check it in the afternoon, but that's it.
Yeah.
So have that, because I think we can all surf chaos. We can kind of go to a meeting, check our email, check our Slack, and we can kind of surf communication, and then we get to the end of the day like, oh, I didn't get done what I was supposed to get done.
Yeah.
So we're just really encouraging folks to make the day count and be Einstein thinkers with their time to create the time to get done what must be done.
I love that. I mean, you're in an interesting position, similar to mine. You're technology leader, but a business leader. So I was just curious, how do you balance your thinking, your time, between the idea of like I got to build a business, but I also have to, make sure that the product development's getting done. How do you manage your time between these two worlds?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the old in the business versus on the business.
Right.
I've been fortunate enough to hire some fantastic project managers. Those project managers have been trained on like what kinds of things to escalate to me. Because as you go up to working on the business, you don't work as much in. So, but then you have to tell the people who are, and I'll articulate this with levels, but everybody is of equal importance in my mind. But at the high level, the level one discussions, it's more around: do we have the right people? Are the clients generally satisfied? What are our programs, and how do we standardize process? On the next level, it's all about client delivery, and we want to guide those conversations between the frontline folks, the people delivering the service, and the people managing the client. And so we've offered some structure and some guidance there, so the right level of things bubble up. And when I first tried to pull back, I hadn't offered this level of instruction and this level of structure, so I was constantly getting pulled back into the business to handle different issues. And once in a while, a new type of issue or a new scenario will arise, and then we can go back into those standard operating procedures and say, hey, this is how you handle that type of issue, and make sure that that ownership is there. And then I think the other key component of that is then as the on the business person, a lot of times you feel like everybody is has their back facing you, so you feel kind of lonely. So I've hired a couple of people that will go out to those teams, kind of like the old, if you've ever seen the Band of Brothers or something, right? The guy that runs out and says like, "Hey, what do you need? Hey, I need some warm socks." And so having some people that are making sure that those frontline teams are happy and healthy and have the things that they need is also part of what's going on. And then the leadership meeting is now purely focused on the business things, things like performance management and things like billing procedures and collections and just the high points of that that kind of stuff. That's what the leadership team is focused on. And then client status and project status and that kind of stuff comes to me in a specific format that I've requested.
Makes a lot of sense, and it seems like that's the one thing that limits a lot of entrepreneurs from really growing is that they continue to work in the business and they're not working on the business, and so they have a hard time letting go, especially in a technology businesses where your strength might have been part of how the company got founded in the beginning. You were good at something from a technology standpoint, so sometimes we find that entrepreneurs have a hard time letting go and letting others, and if you never do that, right? If you've never stopped programming code, you're never going to grow the business. You're never going to get a chance to be something more than a coder.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think you have to be honest with yourself if you're building, scaling, or exiting. Like, what is your focus? And I think these are three distinct stages of business growth. Build is still like, hey, I'm building this business. I'm going to have to be in it quite a bit. And, being really honest with yourself that I'm in build phase, and then handling build phase in a certain way where you're starting to put KPIs in place. You're starting to figure out, well, what are the requirements of this role? How do I manage that person's doing that role? And just do it. Just realize that it's a grind and you're building a business. And then at some point you'll realize that, hey, wow, now I get to scale the business. So I'm going to come out of some of the service delivery. I'm going to hire well. Usually in that transition between build and scale, you have to sacrifice some margin. You have to invest in that stage. And some people will try that, they'll test that, and they'll go, "Ooh, that doesn't feel good to me. I liked the money I was making in the build stage. The margin was too good." And they'll actually go back, and then let's call that a lifestyle business, because that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You've basically you've got you manage, you're kind of your own boss. And a lot of folks can love that and enjoy that for 30 years and be really happy with that. I want to see what the team can do. I'm in that scale stage, and I really want to see what the team is capable of. And then really go be the representation of their effort and the expertise that we're amassing. And so it's just it's a different stage. And a lot of folks are impatient with what do you mean I got to build the business? Like, I can't just delegate everything. And I think that's just stage appropriate thinking. And then you think very differently at exit stage, where you're not implementing programs anymore. EOS would call you an implementer at that point. You've implemented everything. You like the way it's working. You can see that it's just a matter of time, and you're able to win business and execute it. Then you're at an exit stage, and you should consider what it means to either sell that asset, or um, think of an M&A or something. Either buy businesses to make your business better, or sell your business and be a part of a grander vision of some people who've done some adjacent things. And I think that's how a business owner builds real wealth.
That sounds great. Just I know this is sort of a big question in a short amount of time, but what would you say some of the critical success factors are for launching and building a successful technology company, seeing as you've done it a few times?
Um, your product just has to have a real connection with the user. Um, we did DocWorks recently. A buddy and we founded DocWorks, and it was a SaaS product for the marine space. And I really enjoyed what we built. I enjoyed the customers we were starting to acquire. But the investment market was not as favorable for SaaS, as we were kind of at an inflection point where we really needed to we had product market fit. We had our first 30, 40 customers. We were starting to see that, hey, now we need to market this, and the investment dollars just weren't there at the time. So we were able to sell that to Dockmaster, who already had 3,500 customers in the marine space. And it was just a perfect fit. So they rebranded it at Dockmaster Flow, and it was just a really great thing. So so it really is this. With Legal Inc, we started marketing to lawyers, they loved it. We started marketing to enterprise customers, they loved it. So I think it's also like, just what relationship do you have to your user, because, or your customer, because that is the one constant that's going to be in every business as a customer. So just, what you're offering, is it resonating? Are you finding product market fit? And then, when it comes back into operating the business, just following frameworks and rolling up your sleeves. I'm not an EOS guy, but I've started to meet some EOS guys, and following business frameworks and just becoming a more just having more vocabulary, more acumen around business is a learnable thing. It's a skill. So I think you can address that. But if you don't have the right fit with the user, and the user is not connecting with what you're doing, then you'll need to pivot until you figure that out. Because, without the customer supporting what you're doing, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, the dogs have to like the dog food.
That's right. That's right.
Otherwise, it's useless, right? The
That's right.
interesting thing is you one of the things you touch on, and again, I think what I heard in the background is that there's iterations through this, right? There's learning, there's experimenting and failure, and there is saying, okay, well, this isn't really what we expected, but we can pivot and be over here. And I think one of the things that at least my experience as an entrepreneur is, move fast and make adjustments along the way as you see opportunities and you see customers like light up about something, like, oh shoot, this is an opportunity here, we didn't really think about it. But so the idea of it, there's a lot of iterations that happen, and you're learning all the time, and there are, there's really no failures, but it's like data points. You're gaining data points every time you have a new iteration of a product or a new concept, or you reach out to a different customer set. You're making adjustments along the way. It sounds like that's a big part of this.
Absolutely. Even when you're doing startup world, a lot of times you'll have, a minimum viable product, like a basic product line, and it'll solve some needs for the customer, and they'll agree to your initial market price, and then they'll say, but I really wish it would do XYZ. And if you listen to that and you go, that's probably something my other customer, you go ask a couple of other customers, oh yeah, that would be great, I would use that too. And you build into that demand, you you basically gain a loyal following, where they're not, look, you and I don't pay for Netflix because of the movies they already have. We pay for Netflix for the new release that's coming next
Mm-hmm.
week. And so SaaS software, and really, a product or a service is really very much like that. It's not what have you done for me in the past. It's what new things can you do for me going forward. And I think just being honest about that is really great. And then just continuously having that conversation so that you can, needs met is the, customer needs met is the only way to success.
I love that. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
I would say number one thing is, in any given situation, you have a choice whether to be a victim or a creator. And so you can either take responsibility for the situation. And the example I always use here is, you get rear-ended at a stop sign, a stoplight. And even in that, we would start to introduce this idea of fault, because it's a car accident and there's insurance. And so we want to say, well, it was that person's fault for rear-ending me. But you still have to call your insurance. You still have to deal with the situation. So is that fault really, is that really a critical factor? It's really not. All right, I have a new circumstance that has happened to me. If you really thought about it, you could probably find some positive things. Normally my car's scratched in the back. Well, now I'm going to get it fixed, right? So even those things that weren't necessarily your fault, you still take responsibility from them, and you can now create a new situation out of it, that wouldn't have otherwise be there. So I just think this is not something we talk about enough. It's not something we teach our kids enough. You can either be a victim or a creator. That in any given situation, you have a fork, and the more that you choose to take responsibility and go create something new from it, the better off you're going to be. And most negative emotions that we feel are because we're sitting in victimhood, where we feel like
Mm.
something is happening to us rather than that situation happening for us. And even negative situations can be happening for a positive result. Jocko, who I'm sure you know, he has that thing good. The customer fired us and went with a competitor. Good. What is the competitor doing that we can learn from? How did they take our customer away from us? What advantage did they provide to the customer that we weren't able to provide? There's a lot of we can learn by even like losing a customer. So, or we can sit here and we can say, oh, well, this customer just wasn't right for us, and we can sit in that victim mentality. So that was long winded, but that's the thing I would
I love it.
point out today because it's just top of mind. And I could certainly drop a book title or two, but that's what's been on the top of mind for
Don't be
me.
a victim, be a builder, be a creator. I love that. That's such a great way to wrap up this conversation, because I think you've hit a lot of things that are really important. Not just in leading technology teams, but in leading in general. These are important things. So really appreciate that, Ben. How can people find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, so if you go to particle41.com, our major call to action there is book a session. So you go there, it has my Calendly link there. You can book a session with me if you're all interested in continuing the conversation, whether you have a app to go build or you just want to get some just have a business CEO to CEO conversation or business person to business person conversation. I'm available there anytime, particle41.com, and click on book a session.
Fantastic. We're going to put links in the show notes for all of Ben's resources. And again, if this is resonating with you, reach out to Ben. If you've got some old legacy systems out there that are islands and they're not talking to each other and not helping you with your customers, Ben's the guy to talk to get that thing fixed. So I highly encourage you to reach out to him to learn more and to talk about how you can make that better and make those systems run for you versus you running for them. So very important part of your business systems. So Ben, I want to appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to talk to us. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your experiences in the technology space.
Oh, thanks for having me, John. Great format. Really had a good time.
Thank you again. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.